Okay, so I'm going to call the Lake Elmo City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 19th to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item B on our agenda is approval of the agenda. I would request to pull item 11 from the consent agenda and put it into the regular agenda.
Second.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Can I get a motion for approval of the amended agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Support.
We have a motion and a second for the agenda as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Item number C is approval of minutes from the November 6, 2024 special meeting minutes and November 6, 2024 regular meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion on approval of those.
So move. Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as mentioned, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes for referenced meetings are hereby approved. Item D is our public comments and queries. I see that we have several people that would like to come to the podium and speak this evening. Just a general decorum. The only person speaking at the time is one that comes to the podium. When I call your name, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record. If there are people in the audience that have cell phones, please make sure they are on vibrate or mute, so we're not interrupted during their time presenting to council. You will have 6 minutes to convey your message. There is no, council will not be answering questions. If there are questions, we will direct staff to answer said questions via the phone numbers or the emails that have been provided. So, that being understood, I will call John Murphy to the podium. John Murphy. There he is.
John Murphy, 659 Cimarron. You'll have to pardon me, I brought my wrong glasses, so I have to do this kind of look. I'm here representing the citizens of Cimarron of Lake Elmo. Our ask is going to be over the next few times that we talk is an ask again for rent stabilization. We have talked to the city before about that. And over the last few years, we've gotten unreasonable rent increases. And we would like help from our elected officials to help us deal with that. Some of you are familiar with what we're dealing with over in Cimarron for management. It's an outstate property management corporation that, let's just say, they're not treating us as nice as they should be. Another issue that we're asking about, and Charles and I have already talked about this in general, we've got loads of dead trees in our park. And when we ask for them to be removed, many of the residents have been told, well, take care of it yourself. We don't have it in the budget. That's what your homeowner's insurance for if you're concerned about it falling on your cars or your houses. So we're hoping that maybe the city can look into this and help us with that issue. Recently, we learned that the park has been discussing the parking situation in Cimarron. This was dealt with before, and now they're trying to change it again so that we can't park on the streets again. Recently, we all received with our unreasonable rent increase a notice of changing of all the rules in the park, many of which I know personally conflict with my lease, which makes them illegal according to our lawyer. And the the Attorney General's handbook on rules for mobile home housing, and which includes provisions for, you can only own 2 cars, and you can only park them on the driveway. So essentially, if all we have is guest parking, and we can only park our cars on the driveway, which means if I put my car out on the street for any reason, they can go back to just randomly towing like they did a couple of years ago. They had an arrangement with the towing company to just come in from 7 in the night till 7 in the morning, anytime they wanted to, and tow somebody's car. Lastly, I brought up illegal rules already, but there's many provisions in there that just literally make it difficult for us to live in our own homes. So again, asking that over time, we can work together to come up with some reasonable ways to make these things not be enforceable from the city level. That's my ask. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ann Doan?
Hi, my name is On, like on the bus, and I live in 18 Cimarron. As a resident that has lived here ever since I was 12, and then becoming older and like adapting to this world, it's been kind of interesting just seeing how different people are being treated in Cimarron, I guess. So I guess I am also in support of what John is saying. I would like to also mention that I work for Family Means, and it's another building in Cimarron. You guys have probably seen it. It's the youth center building. So I'll have some input on that, and then I'll have some inputs on just like the occupancy of living in Cimarron. For John's, I'm in support of majority of John's purpose and points. Another thing I would like to point out in the policy that the property managers are trying to change is that in the policy she mentioned that, or they mentioned that maximum occupancy could only be 2 people per room, which I think is kind of unjustifiable and wrong because there's families here that have more than 2 people living per room. I would also like you to just empathize if your family has more than 2 person per room, that you would be fine for that. To me, I just think it's morally wrong and ethically wrong. At the end of the day, some people here are renting, some people here are owning things, and if you're just legally, I guess her perspective, legally putting it down as maximum of 2 people occupancy, I just don't think it's wrong. I'm also in support for John about the parking issue. I just don't think it's right. If we're following logic, if the property manager wants 2 person per room, assuming a house has 2 rooms, and there's 4 adults there, how can we justify that only there's 2 parking spots? It just doesn't make sense. Another thing I would like to point out as a Family Means worker, we are kind of like the Switzerland with the park and the residents and the property manager, since we do take care of a lot of the youths that live there. I know that there are certain things that are being changed within the community and our center. Sometimes the property manager has a certain aesthetic that she likes to keep up, and I think it's just kind of hard. I wish we define more of the property manager's rules and definition of aesthetics. I think we can comply, but just as a youth center, having a certain perspective on the aesthetics part as a youth center and like a community, it's just been difficult. And lastly, I guess for my personal my personal push is that there's been a policy where a lot of people here that are renting, the property manager has stated that if you turn 18, the certificate rent would be under the children's name that turn 18, which I think doesn't make sense because a lot of the parents here are still paying for the rent, but then when taxes come around, it's under their children's name. So for me, that doesn't make sense, but that is a new policy that the lease has been reinstated. All in all, I am in support, and I hope I'm in support of John's purpose and like rent stabilization and things for a community, and I hope that all of you guys can empathize with their struggles because at the end of the day, we're all humans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Sammy Silver?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sammy. I am a resident of the Cimarron Mobile Home
Can you
Community.
state your address for the record? please?
467 Cimarron.
Thank you.
So I'm a resident of Cimarron in Lake Elmo. I also own a property management company and a real estate brokerage with over 160 doors under our management. So I'm pretty well versed in how things are supposed to work, how tenants should be treated, and the laws that govern landlord-tenant relations. Before I get into the details of my concerns, I do urge you to re-examine any biases you may hold about mobile homes, the people who live in them, and communities like ours. Mobile homes have become an essential, affordable housing option for many, whether we're trying to get ahead in life or simply stay afloat while owning something on our own. Unfortunately, relentless rent increases have stripped away that affordability, turning yet another viable housing option into something unattainable, all in the hands of corporate greed. Our community is not what you may think. Among us are business owners like myself, employees of major corporations, teachers, students, and children. We are not the stigma often associated with trailer parks. We are successful, educated, hardworking individuals, and many of us have a very tiny touch of affluence, as owning a home while also paying the rent on the land beneath it requires some financial stability. We are not trailer trash, and we ask that you see us for what we are, members of this community with value and dignity. Now, I'd like to bring to your attention a few pressing concerns. Many of us are facing significant rent increases without corresponding improvements in the quality of our living conditions. Management does very little to justify these rent hikes. They perform no interior maintenance. They do not mow our lawns, plow individual driveways, or handle any landscaping on our individual lots. The rent only covers water from a well system, not the city water, sewer from a septic system, not city sewer, trash and recycling services, and snow removal of sidewalks and the roads. At $1,020 a month, that level of service is far from reasonable. Meanwhile, many parts of the sidewalks are in disrepair, the lighting is outdated and often non-functional, and amenities like the pool are largely inaccessible. The pool is frequently closed due to maintenance issues, and when it is open, the hours are restricted from 9 to 5, completely impractical for the majority of residents who work full-time. Despite management collecting approximately $6 million in annual revenue, there is little to no reflection of this in the upkeep, maintenance, or enhancement of our community. These unreasonable rent increases place a significant financial strain on residents. Unlike rent, wages do not increase consistently year after year. This predatory practice forces families to make difficult sacrifices. The extra money comes out of a child's weekend activities, a family's ability to purchase nutritious food, or even their capacity to maintain their home in alignment with the lease requirements. Stabilization of rent would not only alleviate this financial burden, but also hold management accountable for creating living conditions that justify the cost. We have a petition with over 1,500 signatures in support of rent stabilization in Cimarron. There is a critical need to address the removal of diseased and dead trees in our community. I believe there are around 200 trees that need to be removed immediately. These trees pose a serious danger to the residents and their properties, especially during severe weather. Other municipalities that I work with in my job, my career, require landlords to remove dead trees in a timely manner, or they face consequences such as fines and rental license revocation from the city. The city of Lake Elmo, I would like to ask you guys to require this organization to remove the dead trees, especially because if it was a traditional homeowner in the city, I would imagine they would be forced to remove those trees. Cimarron management must be held to similar standards to ensure the safety of everybody. We recently received a 9-page document outlining new rules for January 1st. While a few of them are reasonable and necessary, the majority are not. One rule I can speak to personally is that any fences that are currently installed will have to be removed, will have removal forced upon them at the time of sale. Note that my fence was professionally installed by Midwest Fence, permitted through the city of Lake Elmo, and approved by the park. It cost nearly $4,000 and would be considered an asset to the sale of my home. Forcing its removal upon sale would cause financial damages to me. To boot, they are also now forbidding dogs to be in the fenced-in area unattended. Fences are meant to contain children and pets. That's why people install them. My dog, Ray Ray, a mini Australian Shepherd, has his own flapper door entrance and free reign to come in and out of it as he pleases. This has been the case for the last 3 years since I had that fence installed. The new rules say that I will be evicted if I allow him to be in his fenced-in area, which by the way, significantly improve his quality of life. I find the new rules about fences and dogs to be absurd and unreasonable. Finally, I want to emphasize the importance of creating a safe and secure environment where the residents can thrive. Unfortunately, this has not been the case at Cimarron. Management's behavior has often been harassing and detrimental to our quality of life. As a property manager, I know that the landlords have a legal and ethical obligation to create safe, habitable living conditions for the tenants. Cimarron management is falling far short of that standard. No one should live in fear of their property management staff, yet sadly, this is the reality for most of the residents in Cimarron. Many are afraid to speak out, myself included, for fear of retaliation. This fear stems from ongoing harassment in various forms, such as having things stolen, being screamed at, bullied, insulted, threatened, and treated with complete disrespect. These actions foster an environment of intimidation and hostility, leaving residents feeling unsafe and devalued in their own community and homes. So I ask you for your support in holding Cimarron management accountable and ensuring that all residents of Cimarron have a safe, stable, and dignified place to call home. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sammy. Michael Belay? Below?
All right. My name is Michael Boileau, and I live at 67 Cimarron. I've been there for 28 years. And, you know, at the risk of repeating a little bit, hold on, I got to pull this back up, sorry. Let's see, where am I at? All right, this is what I have to say. Honorable Mayor, esteemed members of the City Council, and fellow citizens. My name is Michael Boileau. I've been a resident of Lake Elmo Cimarron community since 1996. I also serve as a board member working to represent the voices and concerns of my fellow residents. I come before you today to speak on behalf of the community that is facing increasing challenges whose rights are not being respected. When people ask me what I want to accomplish, my answer is simple. We want park management that will work with us, not against us, to build a better, safer, happier community. Unfortunately, what many residents of the park are experiencing is anything but that. The word oppression comes to mind. When I think about how people are treated here, oppression by definition is the systematic harm or exploitation of others, preventing them from having freedom or opportunities they deserve. From unfair restrictions on parking to excessive rules, like they just said no garage sales or fundraisers. I mean, you know, what kind of stuff is that? Unannounced lot entries, management's actions are creating an environment where our rights as residents are being undermined. This is not just about inconvenience. This is about power being used in an unjust, burdensome way. It's about feeling mentally and physically burdened by the constant anxiety and fear over how we are treated and controlled by the park. As outlined in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 3 affirms that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Yet in our community, our personal security and privacy have been repeatedly violated. Unannounced visits to our homes, unreasonable intrusions are just a few of the examples that show how management is failing to respect our rights. They come in, they remove people's property. If my vehicle is impounded by the police, I have an option to go get my property back. I have an option to go get my property back if my property is impounded. We don't have that option. They take our property and it goes into the cloud. I don't know where it goes. They, you know, they just tell you, oh, too bad, and they take your stuff. So, I mean, that's just one of the things. Article 5 of the Declaration also states that no one shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Unfortunately, the residents have been subjected to cruel and unjust treatment that leaves them feeling vulnerable and unheard. Moreover, Article 7 reminds us that all people are equal before the law and entitled to equal protection. But the selective enforcement of rules in our park, combined with an unprofessional and discriminatory approach by management, has created an environment of fear, division. Many residents are afraid to speak up because of the risk of retaliation. And this has caused a chilling effect on the community as a whole. As board members, we are looked at as leaders who represent the voice of the residents. And today, I ask you, our city leaders, to step up and hear those voices. While I understand that the city does not have jurisdiction over the internal workings of the mobile home park, you do have the power to be our voice. We ask you to advocate on our behalf to help us get the attention of the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, to investigate the practices of the park management. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for fairness and respect. We are asking for management that works with us, that listens to us, that strives to build a better community together. There are many residents who want to file complaints, but they're afraid of retaliation. These fears are not without basis. There have been incidents in the past where residents have faced retaliation for speaking out. Management has even gone as far as to label those who raise concerns as troublemakers. It's hearsay, but people, new residents are being warned to stay away from the Residents Association. Like I said, this might be hearsay, but many of us, that's how many of us are living. We're being silenced. But we don't have to remain silent any longer. We are asking for your help in ensuring that we are treated with respect and dignity we deserve. We want park management that will work with us to build a community that is safe, supportive, and truly united. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Michael. Madalena? Do you have a last name, Madalena?
Kellner,
Kellner, thank you.
I was just gonna send my speech through ChatGPT to clean it up and make it sound really good. So you're gonna get the rough draft,
Can you state your address for the record, please?
93 Cimarron.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and hearing us out. I really appreciate all of your time. It's very nice of you to be here and listen and offer listening. So thank you for that, first and foremost. I think we're all very thankful for you just being here and listening to us. It makes us feel seen, at least. So, to jump off someone else saying aesthetics is our last concern in low-income housing or transitional housing situations for a lot of people, where we're focusing on building our families, building community, and building for our future. An extra bike outside is not what we're focusing on, making sure we're making our 9-to-5 job work, making sure we're not getting fired, making sure that our cars aren't going to be impounded is our main priority. There's additional things that accessibility-wise are really harsh concerns for myself. As a young disabled individual, I see that there's a lot of scrutiny when it comes to disability access alone, and I wanted to address those things today. The pool being closed, a lot of the times, pool is a great form of therapy. A lot of us are prescribed water therapy, pool therapy, hydrotherapy, things like that. And we're unable to get to the pool after our work hours because the pool's closed by 5 o'clock in the summer when it sunsets at 9. It just seems a little inflexible, and we've asked for access for later dates. There has been times that I have been at the pool and the bathroom that's supposed to be accessible by the pool is not open or not allowed. So I have to go home to use the restroom when I'm using the pool. And if I'm there with family or extended friends and we're there on a pool date and someone needs to use the restroom, sucks, go home. And that can be really bad, especially if you walked to the pool because you're a younger kid and don't have access to a vehicle yet. There is a new rule or a new policy floating around saying 2 cameras per household. I'm going to touch on this a little bit later as well. But a lot of our homes are not perfect squares. A lot of them have bay windows that cut out, or a lot of them have porches or additional rooms that have been added, or they're not perfect boxes. If you were to drive around the neighborhood, you can see a lot of these homes have pretty dynamic shape. and a lot more curves and edges that more than 2 cameras would give us the security. If you have someone in your home with Alzheimer's that is a risk of fleeing, if you have a lot of kids, or if you're worried about what's going on the outside. Just this past week, we had 3 instances with cops, only 2 of them I even know some of the details. There's a lot going on, and in such a tight-knit community, having that protection over your home is really important. So to be allowed only 2 cameras on our homes that we own it just doesn't feel quite right. The Cimarron block is about 1.25 miles all the way around, making it to where the farthest home from the parking lot that's up front is probably about 1/2 mile, give or take, away from the front. And the parking situation, only being allowed 2 cars per parking spot, makes it really difficult for disabled individuals, especially. Consider I'm at home, I've broken my leg, and I want to have someone bring me over soup. They're going to drive over, bring me soup, but they have to walk 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, almost a full mile in order to get that soup to me, because they can't park in my driveway, they can't park right in front of my house to bring me that soup. Well, okay, I could just drive them, they could go to that parking lot, then I could go drive, pick them up, and then bring them to my home, sure, but remember, I got a broken leg. Remember, I'm disabled, transitioning from hot to cold, hot to cold, hot to cold, could be hard for me or hard for the visitor. So considering access when it comes to disabled individuals, or people just spoon-wise, energy-wise, after really long time spent during the day, who has energy to do that? Am I just going to be cooped up in my home, no more visitors? It's really scary to think about it that way. Neighborhood safety is a really high risk. Our sidewalks are uneven / non-existent due to overgrowth of grass or other vegetation, with pretty dramatic shifts in the concrete, and that can be really hard for wheelchair users, anyone with mobility aids, anyone with canes that are for sighted or non-sighted individuals, or any individuals that use cane to help in the aid of walking as well. And a lot of our lights are also out. So in the winter months, when, again, if we're prescribed walks, if we're prescribed anything for a mild activity, it's very scary because we don't have sidewalks. All of our residents walk on the streets, and that's just kind of the vibe we have in our neighborhood because we don't have sidewalks that are comfortable for us. Management has purposely ignored emails in the past. I've experienced this personally. I've also heard about it happening, where they will say, come into the office and talk with us about it, and we'll take care of it. So then when I come to the office asking for a sticker to go on my car, because I'm now between 2 cars, I just purchased a new car, I'm gonna donate my other car. And with work and everything like that happened on a weekday and I need to do it on a weekend, I need to switch out cars, but I have 2 cars extra, I have an extra car, I'm not allowed that. Is that my timer? No, I'm sorry. Oh, that's okay. Okay, no worries. I'm not allowed to do that. So I wasn't allotted a sticker. I double parked my cars and I prayed. Luckily, nothing happened. But that's really scary to think about. So, and it happened over voice, avoiding the email. I emailed, needing these emails to happen. And so when you ask for a paper trail of a lot of this stuff, we might not have that. We're working on getting video evidence. We're working more on getting picture evidence with our neighborhood watch. We now have a neighborhood community general chat. Yeah.
30 seconds.
So if you need evidence, we're working on it. But know that the office is also making evidence very difficult because they asked us to come in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madalena. Christine Kelly.
When you hear all of us speaking about this, you know what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Sorry that I have to make this share. Hi, I'm Christine Kelly. I live at 325 Cimarron in Lake Elmo, and I am a walk-on member of the Residents Association. And
Can you need to speak
nobody
closer
could
to the
ever hear me. Okay, better?
Thank you.
I'm a walk-on resident, volunteer with the Residents Association. I'm here for the residents at Cimarron because we deserve the same protection you do. Let me take a moment to help you understand where we're coming from, and I think you kind of do because they've been telling you. The people residents are hardworking, honest people with integrity. We are being lied to, and these lies aren't just limited to us. These lies are about Washington County, the police department, Lake Elmo City Hall. The manager tells us that you guys have changed the curfew. And if we find out that you didn't actually change the curfew, then she says Washington County changed the curfew. So we deal with constantly not knowing what's real and what's not. And we have to constantly double check to make sure because we're manipulated all the time. And I implore you to think about yourselves, your friends, your neighbors, your family. You try to have a barbecue with your friends and family and you walk out to your deck and you have 1 table and 4 chairs. Now how do you have anybody over? You got a big huge deck, but all you have is 1 table, 4 chairs, and 4 flower pots. Oh, and we don't get to pick the colors anymore either. You decide you want to roast marshmallows with your kids, but your fire pit's all of a sudden gone. Where did it go? Who took it? We have videos that can show you who took it. It's a hot day in the summer, and you got your grandkids over, but the pool's closed. So you think, gee, I should probably get a kiddie pool. Well, we're not allowed to have those because the Lake Elmo City Council says we can't have them. We were told this. I encourage you, and there's an ordinance, or what is it? I'm gonna get to this. According to an ordinance 139, I believe it is, and you'll have to research it, the police cannot stop her from coming into our yards and taking our stuff. And we've seen this happen where a police officer has stood there as she has removed 3 truckloads of someone's property, and he couldn't do anything. She pays $1,000 a month to live here. What's wrong with this picture? And I'm curious about an incident of violence when someone gets hurt. Who do we call? The health department, because that's what it says in the ordinance. We demand protection. Cimarron Park is a part of the city of Lake Elmo. We, the people of Cimarron, reside in Lake Elmo. What happens is a direct reflection on you, the city of Lake Elmo. I'm of the opinion that Lake Elmo needs to open their eyes, use their brains, and have a heart. We need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. So that is all that I have listed for speaking in the public comment period. Want to thank you for your time, comments, and passion. Notes been taken, appreciate it. Item E of our agenda is a presentation for the local affordable housing aid. Melissa Taphorn.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Melissa Taphorn. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington County Community Development Agency, or CDA. And is this microphone working?
The other one seems to be doing better.
Be louder, yes,
Yeah,
okay.
thanks.
And I have been the Executive Director for going on 5 years, so right before the pandemic started, but I've been at the CDA for 13 years. And I've always worked in affordable housing and community development and economic development for my career, and always in suburbia of the Twin Cities. So want to give you a little overview of our work at the CDA and then talk about the local affordable housing aid. So the CDA is connected to Washington County, but is a separate governmental entity from the county. Our offices are in Woodbury, just across 94 from you. We were established in 1981 and have been working on housing predominantly for the most part, and then in 2016 we added economic development to our authorities. And this is our mission statement and our vision statement. Aspirational on the vision statement, but as all vision statements should be, right? A little bit about our budget. We have a $36 million budget, and we have 40 different revenue sources, which can be categorized in these 4 areas of grant revenues, rents from our CDA properties, tax levy, and then miscellaneous income, which is investment income and TIF. This slide gives you an idea of the housing spectrum. So on the right, or in the red box, is market rate housing. So the CDA's services that impact this market rate housing, and mainly it's home ownership, but it can be market rate rentals, is really on the home ownership end. So we provide technical advisory services for homeowners who are experiencing defaults on their mortgage, if they're looking to refinance, and also for pre-purchase education and counseling, one-on-one counseling for home buyers. We also have a septic loan and grant program for repairs and replacement of septic systems. And when we talk about market rate housing in Washington County, we're talking about, for a family of 4, $124,000 about in terms of income. Just so when we're talking about affordable housing, I want you to have a context of what that means for family income. And when we look at a family of 1, it's going to be lower than this. A family of 6, it's going to be higher. But when we look at averages, we typically take a family of 4. In the orange box is naturally occurring affordable housing. So this can be both rental and owner occupied as well. On rentals, it would be Class C properties where it's just based on amenities or location that the rents are naturally affordable, but they're not subsidized by the public in any way. On home ownership, these might be subsidized because what we're finding is that there are no entry-level homes in Washington County price-wise. And so we work with Habitat for Humanity and the Two Rivers Community Land Trust to really provide those affordable homeownership options. And then we have a home improvement loan program. And this, works, we typically do 80% or less on the area median income, so that's that $74,500 to $124,000. And then the darker blue box is assisted housing. This is where the bulk of our housing services are. We own 1,160 apartments across the county. None of them are located in Lake Elmo. And then we provide rental assistance in the form of Section 8 vouchers so that people can find their own housing, and we will help them pay the rent up to a certain cap. They pay generally 30% of their income towards that. And then we provide financing for private developers to build rental housing predominantly. And when they get tax credits or subordinate debt from us, they are committing to at least 30 years of affordability in exchange for those funds. And then in the light blue box is emergency shelters, different special needs for housing, income-based rents. So think of your public housing. We only have 1 public housing building in Washington County. It's up in Forest Lake, 40 units. And then we have some Section 8 project-based units as well across the county. And we are working with the county, Washington County, for the Emergency Housing Services building located in Stillwater that just broke ground this past week. And this is, when we look at what $37,000 really means, that's a fixed income. It could be Social Security, it could be disability benefits, it could be an entry-level minimum wage job for one earner. So, and then, as I mentioned, we added economic development services or authorities in 2016. I think you guys, through your Economic Development Commission, have worked with Chris Eng from our office on doing some planning. We provide, through Open to Business, a technical advisory service for entrepreneurs and small businesses as they're looking to establish their business or expand. And then we also provide or work with communities on planning, and we can provide pre-development finance fund grants to cities as they look for, do studies on different areas of your city for kind of ideas of what that might look like, or environmental studies, different things like that. And then we also do some studies on, our latest one was on talent supply and demand in Washington County. Guess what? There aren't enough workers in Washington County to meet this demand of their businesses. And then we also have an EPA grant right now to help with brownfield cleanup. So I want to talk a little bit about trends that we're seeing in the rental market. Rents are high, not a big surprise there, but what we're finding is that there are less apartments being built, both at the affordable end and at the market rate end or the luxury end, because interest rates are high, construction costs are high. There's a little more, as the slowdown in construction happens, there's a little more competition in the construction market, but it's still up there. And then on the operational end, we're seeing high insurance rates and some property management and maintenance staffing. Following the pandemic, people don't want to be on site anymore, and so it's tougher and harder to find qualified staff who are experienced, but also want to continue working. So across the county, the median rent is $14.65, and so that's one of the high. I think it is the highest in the 7-county metro area. And then when we look at Lake Elmo, you don't have any apartments here, but you do have a little over 200 rental.
We do have apartments.
Now, okay, sorry, I'm looking at a report that was from a few years ago. So there, at that time, there were like 235 units, and they were, single family. They were kind of scattered sites. But according to Zillow in today, the median rent in Lake Elmo is $3,250, and I think that does reflect the type of units that are being rented rather than lots of apartment buildings. But then there's a mismatch, so we might have enough units, but the units are renting for a higher amount than people are being paid in Washington County. So we're trying to figure out how to address that. That's also happening, that mismatch in the homeownership market where median prices are over $400,000 while the incomes are under that 124 and 100 and under that, so you can't afford to buy that 419. And like I said, we're also seeing that trend where even the most modest and smallest.
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
We have somebody speaking at the podium. If you'd like to be in the council chambers, I'd appreciate it if you weren't speaking. She afforded you guys the opportunity to speak and not interrupt. So I'm having a hard time hearing her over some of the speaking. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you don't wish to stay, you certainly, you don't need to be here if you don't want to. Thank you.
Thank you. And according to Minnesota Housing Partnership, 17% of the homeowners in Washington County have homes that are unaffordable. So they're paying more than 30% of their income towards their mortgage and utilities. In Lake Elmo, the median price is over $600,000. So, I think that you have developed a city that is very in demand, and that's what you're seeing in that pricing in both the rent and the mortgage or the home prices. So moving on to the local affordable housing aid. So this is a program that was created by the state legislature in 2023 and then refined in 2024. We started receiving money, or they started imposing this tax in October 1st of 2023. The first allocation came in July. The second allocation will come next month. It is distributed directly to counties and cities over 10,000 people. So for Washington County, that's the county, and then technically 9 cities, but that's including White Bear Lake and Hastings that are kind of half in and half out of our county. It's appropriated based on the number of cost burden households in your community proportionately. The refinements that happened in 2024 is we found out that you cannot use these funds for administrative costs. So we can't pay for any staffing or any type of, if you wanted to do a housing study to figure out how to use these funds, it won't pay for that. It's, we were a little blindsided by that, I will say. And then, but you do have 4 years to spend the money. And the other refinement is that you cannot supplant, I think that's the word in the statute, any existing locally funded housing expenditures or revenues. So if you had a HRA levy or the county, or the CDA's levy, we couldn't decrease that to in the same amount. It's meant to increase your funds available to do projects. And then they list in the statute the qualifying projects. It started off as the emergency rental assistance, support to nonprofits, and then this last one that has a variety of different bullets underneath it to facilitate affordable housing. And then some advocates got involved and added the stabilizing financially distressed residential properties, which I would argue could be funded in one of the other categories already. But it also includes supportive services for supportive housing and operating costs for emergency housing shelter. The county will be using future funds for to help the operations of the emergency housing services building. And then you need to submit a report to Minnesota Housing Finance Agency on an annual basis. They haven't released what their reporting guidance is going to be yet, which is kind of difficult as we're trying to spend money, not knowing what to collect, but we're working closely with the staff there. Those reports don't start until a year from now, and then, but we do know, according to the statute, that at minimum, we have to explain how we used it, where we used it, and if there's any unspent money. And then after 4 years, if it's still not being able to be spent, it can be deposited into a local housing trust fund. The CDA has already established one. And if it's not there, it has to be returned to revenue. So for Washington County.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Will revenue then redistribute that somewhere that may be in need of those dollars?
According to statute, sorry, Mr. Mayor, that it'll be recycled into Minnesota Housing and very specific programs within Minnesota Housing. And I apologize, I don't have that detail, but
No,
that's where it
thanks.
goes.
Yeah.
So. And then that would go statewide, is my understanding. And I will say, one of the caveats that we just learned, if you move forward with, an agreement with the CDA, we must use the funds in your jurisdiction. They, if there were multiple jurisdictions that wanted to pool their funds to use, it still has to be only in those jurisdictions. That was a interesting tidbit we just learned. So I think that was kind of the intention of everyone that gets money, but I just want to point that out. So for Washington County, we identified some priorities and how we're going to use in collaboration with Washington County has entered into a 5-year agreement with the CDA for us to administer their funds. And in conversations with them, we're using it for 4 things: preserving affordable housing units, increasing the supply of affordable housing units, increasing access to affordable housing, and increasing land supply. So buying up land specifically around transit, which might be the gold line, and then working backwards. Access, we've just launched, as the policies included in your packet, the first generation homebuyer grant program. This is to help people who don't have that generational wealth to really move forward with the hurdles of that initial homeownership. And then we're also looking at some landlord engagement with that too, that it wouldn't be funded with the LAHA funds, but with other CDA funds. Expanding the supply, we're looking at providing additional funding to making funding available to developers of affordable housing this afternoon or earlier today. Our CDA board met and just approved $2 million in loans for 2 different properties that are being built. And then preserving existing affordable housing. So I was talking about that naturally occurring apartments that have lower rents or more modest rents, of trying to make sure that we maintain that supply, because this is like I said, a desirable place to live and work, and investors are coming in, buying those up, and raising the rents, which is great. At the same time, we still need that affordable, and we don't have enough public money to make all of the apartments affordable. We want to make sure that the mom and pops and the other apartment buildings stay kind of at that modest level, and so we're trying. We've developed a program that we think will provide the lowest amount of strings attached to incentivize owners, apartment owners, to do that. Right. And then also within that, preserving affordable housing units is the home improvement loans. And so we think that, in talking with staff, that is maybe the most appropriate place to put city funds, is about 40% of your housing stock, owner-occupied housing stock, is over 25 years old, and you've got some really old homes, and but you have a much newer housing stock compared to other communities in the county. So. And then I will stand for any questions, and these are my team. Carly Schumann works as our Deputy Executive Director and would be working with most of the programs that are funded with LAHA funds. As I mentioned Chris Eng's name earlier, he works with Economic Development, and then Ann Lindquist works with our tenant-based rental assistance, and we will be receiving part of this sales tax also funds the statewide rental assistance program, and we will be receiving those funds in early 2025. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have time for any questions council may have? Councilmember Holtz?
Thank you for that. So we've received some pretty strong feedback tonight from residents at Cimarron. I'm wondering, based upon your profession, based upon your experience with the CDA, are there tools in your toolkit that are applicable for the information that we are receiving?
Yes. Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Holtz, yes, we have worked with Landfall Terrace, and I apologize, this was before my time, but a mobile home community in the city of Oakdale. Both of those resulted in different outcomes. In Oakdale, the infrastructure was so deteriorated that the direction was to purchase it from the private owner, relocate everyone, and demolish, clear the land for other developments. So now it has some Habitat for Humanity townhomes, 2 affordable apartments, 1 family, 1 senior, a number of market rate or just market single family homes, and then 5 homes that are owned by or offered by the Two Rivers Community Land Trust. In Landfall, the CDA and then HRA purchased that from a private owner, and the city formed an HRA. The HRA, we sold bonds to make the infrastructure improvements. There's been an income cap on that and a lot rent cap on that ever since. The HRA, through their lot rents, has been paying the CDA's bonds back, and just paid their last payment in February this year. So now ownership is returning to them. Now, if you're familiar with that community, that is their only residential property, and it is tax exempt as it's owned publicly. So that causes some other issues for that community. I just want to point that out.
Are there any tools in your toolkit that go directly from the CDA to residents?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Holtz, we have some home improvement loans that are specifically, and grants that are specifically for manufactured homes. There is a very low income limit to that, however, so it does create some limits the number of people that can ever actually access it. And you heard people that choose to own a manufactured home are not, I think, are the stereotype of extremely low income, but that's how these programs have been set up. So it limits the number of people that can access those funds. But this is an opportunity to do something more with those, you get to design what program you want, but that could be something as well.
So
Now-
presume, oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I was gonna say, the tree issue, I don't think that falls into this, but I did take notes on a number of the issues that they talked about, because I think some of the policies and, I think, one of them mentioned talking to the state attorney general, and I think that there is a
They've- yeah.
venue there.
They've made multiple referrals.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking notes on that.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. All right, can I get a volunteer to go through the consent agenda, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
2, approve payment of disbursements. 3, approve agreement with WCDA for LAHA funds. 4, approve paid on-call firefighter hire. 5, approve legacy at Northstar landscape security reduction. 6, approve Inwood 6th edition security release. 7, approve Stillwater bus garage landscape security release. 8, approve the liquor license renewals. 9, approve Lake Elmo Lake Association grant application. 10, approve Fire Department Historical Display Project. 12, approve pay request 18 for Water Tower 3. 13, approve pay request 5 for Stillwater Boulevard Trunk Watermain improvements. 14, approve pay request 2 for the Hudson Boulevard improvements, Segment A. 15, accept improvements and approve security reduction for Springs at Lake Elmo. 16, approve Union Pacific Railroad Public Highway at grade crossing agreement. 17, approve cooperative agreement purchase for well 2 generator equipment.
Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Awesome. So the consent agenda is hereby approved. Moving into our first regular agenda item, ISD 834 Utility Improvements Public Hearing, Resolution 2024-119. City Engineer Jack Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I don't see the presentation.
Can you go help him get the presentation up? Hold on. He's got it.
You may have that.
You need help?
It's up there now, Jack.
What's that?
I see it on the screen now.
Oh. Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We've scheduled and called the public improvement hearing for the Stillwater Area School District Utility Improvement Project for tonight. I'll provide a brief presentation, and then we'll ask the council to open the public improvement hearing. So just kind of starting the schedule of where we're at here, the city received a petition from Stillwater Area School District to connect the Oakland Middle School to public sewer and water, and the new elementary school to public sewer. The council accepted that petition at the second meeting in May, and authorized the preparation of a feasibility report. On October 15th, I was back in front of the council presenting the findings and recommendations of the report. And we asked the council to accept the report and call a hearing for tonight. So between that meeting and now, we've published the hearing, sent out individual notices to all the impacted properties. And then also in addition to that, we created a waiver of assessment agreement for the Stillwater Area School District, and had that sent out, worked with them, and we do have a signed agreement that's in your packet before you tonight. We'll have the public improvement hearing tonight and ask the council to order the plans and specifications, and that would kick off the design phase of the project. We'd be able to get survey before winter, design through the winter, and then start constructing it next year with the intent of having the improvements completed by the end of 2025. So on the left-hand side of the screen is the existing conditions. Basically, what it's just showing is there's an existing lift station on the south end of the Royal Gulf community at Palmer Drive and 10th Street. That has a force main, an 8-inch force main that runs along 10th Street back toward Lake Elmo Avenue. And then that connects into an existing 16-inch force main that's coming from the old village. So they join together there, and then they continue south, and they discharge at 5th Street to that yellow line, which is a gravity sewer, a 24-inch gravity sewer that then discharges to the Met Council facilities. So that's what's in the ground today and operating. On the proposed, on the right-hand side, we have 2 yellow squares there. One's we have 2 projects going on where the Oakland Middle School is expanding and asked to connect to sewer and water. So that's a property that would be benefiting from the improvements that we're looking at. And then we have the new elementary school at the corner of 10th Street and Lake Elmo Avenue. And then there's the pink square there that I'll just call out. That's a single residential family, a single parcel that, because of the proposed improvements, that would benefit from this project with receiving access to both sewer and water as part of this project. So this diagram is the proposed improvements as it exists in the feasibility report. What we're calling out here in the feasibility report and costing is the portion of the improvements that the city would take on, and then there's some private improvements that the school district would do in addition to these improvements. So starting from that lift station, there's the magenta line. That's a sanitary sewer line that would connect to the existing lift station. The city would put that in, run it across to the south side of 10th Street, run along the boulevard to the city, to the school district property, and leave a stub there. And then the blue line is a parallel water main line. So we'd be extending sewer and water from the Royal Gulf development through gravity and the water main to the school site. And then you see some other lines running south into the school district property. That would be part of the Oakland Middle School project and their subdivision improvements, if you will, as part of that project that they would put in. It does include a 12-inch trunk water main that would extend through their property and generally to the south edge of their property. That would be publicly owned and be part of a loop that would eventually go into the future development system. The sanitary sewer would remain private for the school district. So that would get the Oakland Middle School connected to sewer and water. It gets them to the lift station in the Royal Gulf. And then we looked at the improvements to the upgrade to the lift station, which we found we don't need to do any changes to the lift station pump motor or anything like that. But we are proposing to replace the 8-inch force main that's in place, or 6-inch force main with an 8-inch force main. So we would abandon the 6-inch force main that's in place, install a new 8-inch force main along 10th Street to that intersection of Lake Elmo Avenue. You then see the red dot would be a sanitary lift station that the school district would privately build for the elementary school, with the green force main, which would be theirs to that same corner at Lake Elmo Avenue and 10th Street. And at that point, then it all becomes public again, and the city improvements include the installation of a 10-inch force main extending southward from that location to the manhole for the 24-inch gravity line at 5th Street. So with that extent of the public improvements that would be part of this project, the total estimated project cost is $1,752,000. $1,584,000 of that is related to sanitary sewer improvements, and then just under $170,000 is related to the water main improvements. So with those costs and that scope of work, we then look at the assessment policy. We assess 100% of utility costs to the benefiting parcels, and we do it on a per residential equivalent unit. So the new elementary school is estimated at 142 rec units. The Oakland Middle School is estimated at 140. And then we have the one residential property at 11817 10th Street, which is 1 unit. So that when we total those up, the sanitary sewer improvements are all 3 of those parcels. So there's 283 benefiting rec units. So you do the simple math of the sewer cost to those rec units, and it's $5,600 per rec unit as a unit assessment. And then the water main improvements is just the Oakland Middle School and the one residential property, so it's 141 rec units, sharing in the $170,000 cost, or $1,200 per rec unit. So this is the preliminary assessment roll that's found in the feasibility report, and it's simply just summarizing those three properties, the middle school, the elementary school, and the one residential property, with what their assessment would be for sanitary, sewer, and water improvements based on those per unit rec assessment amounts. And then we also summarize the fees a couple different ways. In addition to the assessments and paying for these physical improvements that we'd be constructing as part of the project, there's also connection charges for each of these properties when they connect to sewer and water. So we've outlined that on this screen. On the top of the screen, we have the sewer connection and availability charges summarized. So it really comes out to be $6,485 per rec unit. So you're just kind of doing the simple math of that times the number of rec units for each of those parcels for the sewer connection fees. And then the water connection and availability charges are $4,000 per rec unit, and the same thing. So the Oakland Middle School would have a connection charge of $560,000 to water, and the residential property would have a connection charge of $4,000 to water. With this slide, I did a total cost summary by parcel, so there's no new information presented here that you haven't just seen. I just summarized it differently by listing it by parcel. So you have the new elementary school showing their sanitary sewer assessment cost, their SAC and connection fee cost, and then just itemizing that they are building their own lift station and force main for that as well. So that's a private improvement that they'll be doing in addition to that to gain access to sewer. And then the water, there is no water main part of this project. They will be doing water main as part of their subdivision improvement there, and they'll have connection fees associated when they connect to water. And they will be running water main internal to their site at their own cost. And then the Oakland Middle School has a sanitary sewer assessment, has a sewer connection and SAC fee. And then again, they'll have to run sanitary sewer to the south end of their parcel to connect to the building at their cost. And then there's a water main assessment, a water main connection fee, and then there's also some additional water main internal to the site that they'll be constructing as part of their improvements. And then the residential property will have a sewer assessment of $5,600, connection fees of $6,485. And then they'll have a water main assessment of $1,200, a water connection fee of $4,000. And again, they'll have to hire a contractor to make the physical connection from the mains to their house at their cost. So following the public improvement hearing, the actions that we'll be requesting tonight is to have the council order the improvements and the preparation of plans and specifications as outlined in the feasibility report that was accepted on October 15th. And then we also worked with Bolton & Mink, who did the preliminary design engineering on the project, and brought forward an amendment, number 1, to cover the design and construction phase engineering services for this project. So we'd be asking for authorization for their services for the remaining engineering for the project. And then also to authorize the city administrator to sign a geotechnical services design contract in a not to exceed amount of $25,000. We haven't done proposals for geotechnical yet. It's complicated enough in this particular project that we'd be looking to get the design engineer on board first and have them work on the scope of the geotechnical proposal for us.
Quick question on that. Is for those, the $207,000 and the $25,000, is the city responsible for any of that? Is that paid for in part by the school?
It's part of the total project cost of the $1,752,000. So it's all part of that, and then it's all assessed.
Okay.
And recovered through the assessments.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that fee is within the scope of that overall budget.
Thank you.
Councilmember Holtz?
When it comes to equipment that then would have to be, the lift station that has to go on the north side of Oakland along 10th Street, I assume that's on the district property, it's not on the right of way for 10th or anything. How much land does that take up for that lift station?
So the Oakland Middle School will be able to go from their building by gravity to the
Using the one at
existing,
Royal?
to the existing Royal Golf lift station.
So there won't be any new improvements at grade level in that area on the north side?
Right, it's going to the existing lift station and that doesn't need any upgrades.
I just ask because that's the land of our joint powers agreement calls out for a park being there. So I just wanted to clarify that. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to go into the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of going into the public hearing for the resolution ordering the improvement and preparation of plan specifications for the Stillwater Area School District Utility Improvement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we will go into the public hearing at 8:10 PM. If there's anybody that wishes to speak about the ISD 834 utility improvements, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. Not seeing anyone, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing for the improvements, utility improvements for the ISD 834. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, hearing is closed at 8:11 PM. I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2024-119.
Move to adopt resolution 2024-119, ordering the Stillwater Area School District utility improvements as outlined in the feasibility report approved on October 15, 2024, and ordering the preparation of plans and specifications.
Support.
All right, any discussion? Thanks for the time and effort putting this plan together. I think it's gonna help out the Oakland Middle School and obviously any future development that happens and needs to use the sanitary function. I'm glad that the lift station doesn't need to be removed and that we're upgrading the force main from 6 to 8 inch. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of recommending that City Council approve Resolution 2024-119, ordering the Stillwater Area School District utility improvements and preparation of plans specifications for recommended improvements outlined in the feasibility report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any nays?
Nay.
All right, we have a 3-1 approval on that resolution. I'll recommend, I'll
Move to approve task order number 24, Amendment 1 for design and construction phase engineering services to be provided by Bolton and Menk in the not-to-exceed amount of $207,972, and authorize the city administrator to sign a geotechnical services design contract in the not-to-exceed amount of $25,000 for the Stillwater Area School District utility improvements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving task order number 24 as referenced and authorizing the city administrator to sign geotech services design contract in the not-to-exceed amount of $25,000, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
We pass that one 3-1.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah?
do we have 4 votes on the first one?
Well, if I need to vote, then I will vote yes.
Yeah, you need to vote on that one.
All right.
Okay.
So I vote yea on both accounts.
Do I need to reconsider?
I think we might
I
want to
think-
do that, just
Motion to reconsider previous vote on Resolution 2024-119.
There's a second?
Second.
All right. Reconsidering the motion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
I agreed.
Oh, you did?
That's fine.
All right. So it's
We
a
got five
5-0
votes, all right.
then. All right. Number 19 is the Roars LE multifamily final plat PUD and DA resolution 2024 dash,
I think we just,
We just voted to reconsider.
oh, reconsider.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Move to adopt Resolution 2024-109, et cetera.
second.
All right. Call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
All right, 4-1. We all good now?
yes.
We're good, thank you. Number 19, Roars LE multifamily final plat PUD and DA resolution 2024-120, ordinance 2024-19, resolution 2024-121, and resolution 2024-122. Mr. First.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So we are talking about the Roars Lake Elmo multifamily project, which is on a property that you're probably somewhat familiar with. This project is formerly known as the Hendricks project. You'll see the location on the screen here. It's in on the parcel just to the west of the Springs development, north of 94. So the applicant has become Roars Companies. They have purchased the development rights for this project and are now bringing this back in front of the city, largely with what I would consider to be administrative requests to approve a revised final plat, to adopt the PUD ordinance as required by city code, and to approve a revised development agreement. The project, as a reminder or refresher, includes one lot with 190 units on about 11 acres, and then a second lot with a future commercial use, and that is about 2 acres in size. So the zoning and the future land use maps both have this parcel as mixed-use commercial. So this use is consistent with the development approvals in the past and the city's land use guidance. You'll see on the screen, this is the site plan that the city previously approved, and that is being brought forward again this evening for those final approvals. Just in a nutshell, you'll see a few different things on the site. First and foremost, in the north side of the site, you'll see that multifamily building. Does, again, 190 units with surface parking and underground parking. It's also got site amenities for those residents that would live there. On that same lot, you'll see two different stormwater management ponds, and they'll manage the stormwater that's running off those impervious surfaces on site. Lastly, there is that second lot on the southeast corner of the property that was formerly going to be a daycare, but is now, since the daycare use has found a different parcel, that will be a speculative commercial project at some point in the future. That lot would be developed. So the site plan would remain in place, though. One thing to note here is the lavender or the purple color on the south side, that is Hudson Boulevard. That is part of the improvements as required by the city in its former approvals. Hudson Boulevard would be reconstructed. On the north side, it would be an urban section. So on the screen now is that final plat. Again, the final plat has been revised and resubmitted, and the revisions to the final plat do reflect the conditions of the previous approvals by the city. And so it does implement things that are required of the developer. So, and just as a kind of last slide on the background here, in August of 2022, the city approved a preliminary plat for this development, and then that was followed by, that next November, the city council approved the final plat. There was a 1-year extension to the recording deadline, at which point, that next year, Roars Companies did acquire the development rights and asked for another extension so that they could kind of get their team on board, make sure that they got the plans revised as needed, and here they are now with those requests in front of the council. So staff are providing a recommendation to approve the requests. There have been no changes. The plans pretty much came in, as expected. So we are also proposing those conditions of approval that were put on the development previously to be just put back on this final plat and PUD. So those conditions of approval include things like ensuring conformance with city engineer, landscape architect, fire chief memos, the city attorney's plat opinion, making sure relevant fees are paid and permits are received. The Hudson Boulevard improvements are put in place as well. So we can go into those if you have any questions. That brings me to the recommendations. We've got 3 resolutions and 1 ordinance here. The ordinance would be to formalize the PUD standards that were granted by the city. So with that, I am happy to take your questions.
Any questions? I know that this came before council prior to Councilmember Hearn and Councilmember Dragisich. So if you have any questions that are relative to the request, feel free to ask away.
I guess just one clarification, so, on page 2, talks about the city area previously used only the area of lot 1 plus the right-of-way dedication for the purpose of the net density calculation. However, for the purpose of the calculating density, city staff have confirmed with the Met Council that the city can use the entire project's area. So just with that term can, is this the way that we have typically calculated, or is this different? A couple years ago, did we calculate it differently?
That is definitely one of the important pieces of this review. So basically reevaluating the final plat, we wanted to ensure that we weren't gonna be putting ourselves in jeopardy of needing a comprehensive plan amendment in the future. So the former approval did approve a development at greater than 15 units per acre, which is 15 units per acre is the maximum in the future land use category. And so the city had done that by basically netting out the commercial lot. We've worked with the Met Council to make sure we understand that we can interpret this development to be consistent with the city's future land use map. It's consistent with Met Council interpretation, and so this is also consistent with the way that we've worked on other developments. Effectively, it's being platted in one phase, so we're able to use the entire acreage of the development. That's all within the same future land use category. So it's sort of a confusing way of saying, by making the interpretation in this manner, it's consistent with the city's past practices and also avoids a comprehensive plan amendment.
Past practices in the last couple of years, not.
Correct.
Okay.
Not obviously with the former approval.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Beckstrom?
So with this project, so are they building the exact same facility? So it's
Yes.
gonna look the same,
Yep.
it's, everything about it is the same?
Yep, everything about it is the same. The architectural renderings that were provided were the same as those which were approved by the city. So the design is the same. The landscaping plan is, modified to meet the city's, city landscape architect comments. Site plan, the same can be said for some of those engineering comments. So those few areas of difference, and there are just a few of them, really are intended to meet the city's requirements of the former approval.
So they don't wanna change the way the building will look?
My understanding is no, it's being proposed as presented.
All right.
Councilmember Holtz?
And nothing with the other lot being speculative at this point. That doesn't prevent or limit the ability to do the stormwater reuse or any of that's already in place. That's
No.
already expected for the main site.
Correct, so these plans have that same site plan. You could put a different commercial use in that building. The impervious surface on site is proposed to be the same. With this development approval, we're also sort of locking them in at the number of parking stalls that they have, which obviously is a driver of impervious surface. So if a use came in that required more parking in the future, they would theoretically need to come back and do some type of revision to the site plan, and maybe
Yep.
the PUD depends. Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hearn?
Can we go back 2 slides? I think it was 2 to the conditions of approval. So I just want to read through the second to last and third to last bullets there. So it talks about agreements may be required if needed for the stormwater reuse agreement. And then in the next one, it says stormwater irrigation reuse required. So I just want to make sure that I'm seeing it right, that
Yep.
stormwater would have to be used for irrigation. The stormwater reuse agreement versus the stormwater irrigation reuse, I guess if you can help me
Sure.
understand the
Yeah.
difference on those two.
Sorry, it's a little confusing. I was
Okay.
trying to summarize things, and sometimes it gets difficult, but long story short is that this development is required to have a stormwater reuse irrigation system.
Okay.
And when the systems are required to meet watershed policies or permitting requirements, the city has to require a long-term maintenance agreement as well. And so that's why that agreement
Okay.
is required, and the final plat resolution has been modified to require that the developer enter into that agreement with the city.
Great, thank you.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt 2024-120, approving the revised final plat and PUD requested by Rohr's Companies LLC for the subject property based on the findings of fact and conditions of approval listed therein.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Councilmember Backstrom.
So this is probably the one development, apartment building in the city that I've regretted approving, because it didn't fit in with the aesthetics of Lake Elmo. It didn't fit in with the aesthetics of the area around it. And so I guess I get a do-over with this one, and I would rather see something that fit into Lake Elmo, versus what was designed previous. And I think that was early in my council time. And I've learned a lot since then. So I'm not gonna support this, because I would prefer to see something different. And again, I think we have a water issue, so I'm gonna stand on that.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion?
I guess maybe a question off of that. So with this being a revised final plat, so in the past when we've come back with final plats after a preliminary, I thought the understanding was kind of legally that if nothing drastically has changed, that we are required to move forward. Is it different since this is a revised final plat?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't believe so. So it should be as long as it's in conformance with the preliminary plat, which I believe is what the staff is telling you is it is, and there haven't been, I mean, it'd be different if they came back with like townhouse lots or something completely different, but this is just very minor changes involving, you know, stormwater. They're gonna have stormwater reuse, which I don't think was required at the time, and now it is required, but they're not changing any of the lot lines or dedicated right away.
Okay. I mean, I guess maybe also is my comment on this would be, you know, I guess coming into this, I maybe agree that visually it might not be the most ideal one. I guess, you know, from my standpoint, I didn't get to vote on this in the first place. My vote of approval on this is more just I think that it's what has to be done since since the preliminary plat was approved.
All right, I'll call the question for the motion to adopt resolution 2024-120. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
All right, motion passes 4-1.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2024-18, approving the PUD requested by Rohr's Company LLC for the Rohr's Lake Elmo multifamily project.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question for the motion to adopt ordinance 2024-18. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Bless you.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign?
Nay.
All right, motion passed 4-1.
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-121, approving the summary publication of ordinance 2024-18.
Support.
We have a motion to adopt resolution 2024-121, approving the summary publication of ordinance 2024-18. Not much to discuss here. I'm just going to call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, I'll entertain entertain a motion on the last resolution.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2024-122, approving the revised developers agreement for the Roars Lake Elmo multifamily project on the DPS Lake Elmo 3rd Edition plat.
Support.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 2024-122, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Vote 4-1. Passes. Next item on the agenda is Easton Village, 7th Edition DA Amendment, Resolution 2024-123.
Right, good evening. This is a request to amend the development agreement in Easton Village 6th and 7th. Quick background, the city allowed permits to be issued before sidewalks in Easton Village 5th Edition. In 6th and 7th Edition, city staff proposed requiring sidewalks prior to permits being issued to address a history of noncompliance by the developer on previous development phases. So the issue before the council is should the city approve second amendment to the development agreement for Easton Village 6th and 7th in order to allow the issuance of building permits prior to public improvement, acceptance, and sidewalk installation. So quickly, what they're requesting is to go back to 5th edition, which is, the main sections are A and F. They may be hard to read, but essentially F states how they would go about getting permits prior to sidewalks being issued. And it would ensure that the sidewalks and trails are constructed prior to any driveways for any lots with sidewalks or trails. 2, that the sidewalks and trails are constructed continuously from end to end and from end of street to end of street without exception or gaps in the sidewalk or trail. 3, that there's a stop work order on all building construction for impacted lots during the sidewalk and trail construction and curing periods to prohibit traffic prior to city approval. And 4, that all boulevard grading and restoration rework is completed and immediately following the sidewalk or trail construction. So the fiscal impact of the city and the main impact and challenges that we have with the sidewalks are that if the development agreement is amended, there would be more staff time involved with compliance and monitoring of the site. There may be costs to the city if the sidewalk quality is impaired. So typically what would happen is if they're poured and they're not cured and someone drives on it, we do not see it. You know, will the sidewalks fail prematurely? And then also in the past, developers have sought retention of sidewalks that were required to be replaced by engineering. So what happens is they come back before the council and request not to replace the sidewalks. That could lead to the sidewalks failing sooner and having a cost to the residents. So the options are either approve the amendment, deny, or change the proposed second amendment. If the council is supportive of the developer's request, we strongly recommend that the development agreement includes section 27H from Northstar's first edition. This is new language that addresses how to issue building permits prior to sidewalks. It's very similar to Easton Village's agreement, but adds a little bit more language to the bottom that discusses, well, I'll just read it. In the event that the developer does not adhere to the requirements in this paragraph, the developer must immediately complete corrective work to the sidewalks, trails, and boulevard areas in the manner identified by the city at the developer's expense. All sidewalk and trail corrections must be made by contractors under the direction of the developer in accordance with the approved plans and specifications for the subdivision. All corrective work must be inspected and approved by the city. The developer agrees that the failure by the developer to immediately address corrections identified by the city may result in the city immediately placing a stop work order on all construction activity within the subdivision until the corrections are made to the satisfaction of the city. So our recommendation is to deny the request. If you do choose to approve the request, this is a motion to approve the request, approving the second amendment to the development agreement for Easton Village 6 and 7 additions. We are running into the issue with winter, and that's really the challenge, is running out of time to get the sidewalks in. And I know that their builders would like permits fairly soon. So we have the applicant here too that can speak or answer any questions.
Okay. Would the developer like to speak?
Yeah, good evening. My name is John Anderson. I represent Chase Development. Just a little history. I started working with Chase Development about spring of '23, And we were here in front of you guys on the city council when you were looking at pulling some letter of credits to finish up some of the punch list items in the previous 5 phases. Since that point, I've been working with the city and we've pretty much accomplished and cleaned up everything. There's a couple of minor outstanding items on some swales and a driveway issue, but everything else has been approved and accepted by the city. So the issue of previous non-compliance was before my time, and since then I've been working with the city and we've gone through the 7th edition. And we have everything basically done out there except for sidewalks. And as he said, weather's kind of bumping up against us right now. We did have streets paved quite a while ago, and we have to put in electric and gas and phone and cable and things like that prior to sidewalks from a timing standpoint, and we almost waited 6 weeks for that to happen. So here we are. Those were completed last Thursday, and we got a big rain yesterday. So we're trying to see what we can do, but what we're asking for at this point is to go back to previous language and language other developments are using, such as Northstar, where they're allowed to do building permits prior to sidewalks. We'll have utilities approved, streets are paved. The trail's actually paved as well already, so that is completed. It's just the sidewalks. That would be the only outstanding item. And we had also received a letter from Midwest Concrete, who is our subcontractor to Freege's Excavating, who's the general contractor, who is going to put the sidewalks in. And they said if we come in and do that yet this year, with the weather, it doesn't make sense to do it. You're going to get a worse product based on the time of year, and they recommend waiting until spring. You're also going to have the builder, Nick Hackworthy, the owner of Creative, who is the only builder in the project, has multiple houses they'd like to start out there with that are sold. And he can talk about some of his previous experiences in some developments here in a second. But we're looking to have, you know, that done, and they would be open to the 7-day period where it cures when we do put the sidewalks in next spring, prior to driveways and things like that happening. So we're just looking to be treated the same as the other developments in past phases of Easton Village. And it is a major issue if we can sit there all year with no building permits, only due to sidewalks being installed. To make sure things do get done, the city still holds a roughly $2 million letter of credit to install these sidewalks and other improvements on the site. So from a money standpoint, you have the ability to take that money and use it if we don't come back and put those in the spring. And I know our contractor and stuff is fully aware and ready to do that. So unless you have any other questions, I'll let Nick talk about some of his stuff as well. I do think it'd be a better product and allow quite a few homes to be built over the winter prior to driving back and forth over the sidewalks, and then letting the sidewalks go in at that point, and then the remainder of the house is being built after that. So, I don't know if Nick has something to say quick or.
Good evening, Nick Hackworthy, owner, president of Creative Homes. Yes, I just wanted to thank you guys for your time tonight. We've, this will be our 7th neighborhood that we've built in here in the great community of Lake Elmo. I think we've built in excess of 300 homes here the last several years, and I'm here to ask you guys really, more than anything, probably on behalf of our customers, to be able to allow this amendment to the language for us to be able to move forward and pull building permits. At this time, we do have 6 customers that we've already entered into contract with to build their future homes and to be residents of this community. And I anticipate for us to continue to probably sell a couple additional homes each month as we proceed into the spring. And I know that if we are not able to obtain building permits, that I would expect, if not all, most of the customers to probably want to cancel their purchase agreements to be able to move forward with their build. So we are the exclusive builder here in the 7th edition. We're also one of 3 home builders that are going to be building in the Northstar community that has similar language that's allowing the issuance of building permits prior to sidewalks. And then I would also just comment that it is extraordinarily customary in our industry. While I'm here wearing a home builder hat tonight, we do a lot of land development across many municipalities here in the Twin Cities and in western Wisconsin, that it is very typical with the seasonality that we have with our winters here to be able to allow building permit issuance prior to sidewalks. So I ask for your consideration of that tonight. And I will also just attest that the majority of sidewalk damage that happens usually happens from us builders while we're building these homes. And I strongly believe that there will be less damage that will occur with these homes that we construct before they go in. I'm quite confident we will damage sidewalks once the sidewalks do go in. And between us as the builder and Chase as the developer, as we have in the past, those sidewalk panels will be replaced, and the city has financial surety to make sure that that stuff happens. And so, yeah, with that, I just ask for your guys' support and help, really on behalf of our customers and future residents of the city, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Any questions for the developer?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Councilmember Holtz.
I guess a question for Director Stopa. Do we know within our DAs why the language has changed over time from the 5th to the Northstar?
Yeah, at some point, the previous city administrator, working with staff, required that that the sidewalks were placed prior to the building permits. And it really was only 2, I believe, and Jack can back me up on this, there was only 2 developments, I think, where that changed. And that was Northstar and then Easton Village 6th and 7th. And Northstar petitioned to have the building permits prior to the sidewalk. So they are the only development where they would have to put the sidewalks in prior to receiving permits.
Have you faced any issues with the Northstar development with that?
They have not started building yet.
Yeah, okay.
So the question is, with the amended, would include the language that's in Northstar?
Yes, we have a resolution prepared that it includes
Okay.
adding that.
As you read the highlighted area previously, that's all right.
Correct.
Councilmember Beckstrom?
So why are, just in summary, why are you recommending denying this?
Just talking to staff that has worked with a developer in the past, there's been challenges.
Because of the non-compliance and the reason why we're kind of in this position?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for either Director Stopa or?
I guess just one more. I guess if you could just kind of speak to, I know obviously like they brought up the line of credit that we were kind of holding over them a year ago at this point. How has the experience been over the last year with that progress from the city staff standpoint?
I'll have to defer that to Jack Griffin in terms of.
Yeah, the experience recently has been good in bringing the issues up, but we haven't had any experiences with the actual sidewalk issue. So the sidewalk issue, the language that Director Stopa is showing is language we've used before. If you notice, what it requires is the most important time for the sidewalk is the curing period. And so if building contractors are allowed in, now you have all kinds of different contractors, subcontractors, subs of subs, you've people coming and going all kinds of different directions. At some point, you've got to put the sidewalk in, and you're putting it in for a full block. And you got to stop the traffic for that critical period. It's not about all year long, it's about that 7 days. That cure period is when you don't want the traffic. What happens with the traffic during the cure period is you can have concrete that's not showing a crack or distress, but it could be severely weakened and bring you a shortened life over that time, unbeknownst, until some years later. So we had instances with contractors and subcontractors not compliant with inspectors standing right there, basically laughing at the inspectors and driving over sidewalks and continuing to do their work. So if you notice the language, we have a process to get it done and get it done right. It requires the developer to have a stop work order on his building community, on his builders, on his subcontractors during that cure period. And that's where we started, that's the non-compliance we're referring to, where we didn't get that compliance.
Okay.
Councilmember Holtz?
In terms of that setup, does it help, say, with the alternative language? Is there a possibility of having a less risk if you have it from one builder, where you're not doing a house and then 3 empty lots and then a house? You're able to do 8 houses in a row, does that help logistically then with the scheduling of having to do your pour and have everyone stop because you're doing this entire stretch all at once? Do you understand what I?
Yeah, and I would assume the answer is yes. But again, it's, the builders have all kinds of trades and they have all kinds of people that are coming and going. So I'm not part of that construction world, so I don't know how well they can control that or not control it. So we've seen it successfully done. We've had that practice in other developments and it's been done. But we've also seen it not work and not be done.
Councilmember Dragisich?
Yeah, question. So part of the concern about the sidewalks is because the cold weather is coming and we don't want to pour the sidewalks in the cold weather. But we're okay pouring the basements in that same cold weather. I'm confused.
So a couple of things, I think, one, I guess a question back to the developer is, what is the quickest that the sidewalk should even be? Let me address your question first. The concrete mix that we use to pour a basement is a very different mix that has certain additives to the concrete so that it can be poured in temperatures as long as they're about above zero, and it's treated differently than a sidewalk. So that would answer your question. I think the other part of the component is the timing of when these sidewalks would be poured.
Yeah, so there's different things with sidewalks, and Jack might know this, I think there's like a call it high early, which allows you to pour in colder weather. There's other things you can do, like blanket the sidewalks after they're poured to keep the heat out and things like that. So, but there, it's, ideally it's not, you can look at the weather forecast for the next 10 days and it's gonna get below freezing just about every night. You have days where it's in the mid-40s maybe, but, when you start getting below freezing, that's when you don't wanna do it. So, going back to standard practice, I'm doing other developments in other communities right now, one in Rosemont and Lakeville, where we got the exact same issue. And in those cases, they just said, okay, we'll worry about it next spring. You block off the roads or the subcontractors. In this case, Nick is the only builder. He can control those subcontractors since it's not multiple builders like some of the past phases have been, where you have different subs and different people from different builders. So it's a little more controlled in the 7th edition with only the one builder there. So, but the deal is with the different types of things, there's a way to pour it, but it's just not ideal at this point, so.
Councilmember Beckstrom?
So, just to tap onto that, so it's not ideal, but it's doable?
It's not ideal, but it's doable to an extent of we have to watch the weather and things like that. First of all, you have to cut in the base, get the gravel down, and then look for the day to pour it. Obviously, it rained the other day, so things are very wet right now. And I don't know, did you guys see the letter from Midwest Concrete by chance or no?
Yes.
So what they're saying is the ground right now is saturated with water. And ideally, you don't want to do that. You have to take out that soil, put in new soil. From a cost factor, it gets a lot more expensive. And as we said, it's standard practice is, if you sidewalks, in a lot of cases, don't get put in the same year. And in previous phases, that was allowed. In other developments, that's allowed. And like I said, the non-compliance stuff goes back to before I was really involved with the Easton Village project and Chase Development. And I don't think we've had major issues or any issues really at all since that time. And like I said, if we had another 2 good weeks of warm weather, we'd have these things done. But the weather's kind of coming up against us right now this week, and that's why we're here kind of discussing this at this time. Because we really had to wait for electric and gas, and like I said, they just finished up Thursday last week, so.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-123, approving the second amendment to the development agreement for Easton Village 6th and 7th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second discussion. Councilmember Holtz?
I think it's entirely fair to know, based upon the years of noncompliance, to have hesitation. I fully get it. As one who lives in the neighborhood, who has had to have my yard regraded 3 times, constant flooding, seeing issues across the multiple additions in the neighborhood, I fully get it. So I think that is a valid concern. I also think that this is based upon the fact that there have been improvements over the last year in terms of communication, in terms of getting out there and getting things done. I'm willing to act in good faith in this regard. There is a risk, yes, but I think the risk is mitigated, especially by having it be one builder. I would be much more hesitant about this if it was with multiple builders, as the early phases were, because there was a lot of issues that causes. But on the flip side, we can't be here next year having a conversation about noncompliance. We cannot. That would not be acceptable in any way, shape, or form, and we do have the money in escrow, but that takes staff time and it takes labor, and we cannot be in that position. So get it done. That's why at least I'm offering this motion. I don't think the risk is high, but I'll see how the votes go.
Any other discussion?
So just, I guess maybe a question, so with the, motion, would that be including section 27H?
Yes.
That would be, okay.
Yes.
Councilmember Backstrom.
Well, I know we've got different players involved in the work, and things have gone a little better. I'm not sure that I can support this, just because we've had so many issues, and I guess I'm not willing to take a chance that we're not going to have issues again. I think we put some things in place that we needed to have the entrance closed before certain things happened, and there was quite a delay on that, which has just simply pushed things further and further into the fall, putting us in this position. So I don't really see this as the city's issue. I think this goes back to the developer and timelines and getting the work done as agreed and per timeline. And I know you refer to standard practice, and I understand that, but it hasn't been standard practice with Chase Development, and we've had a lot of problems, and I guess this is just a consequence to all that's transpired with this developer, and I wouldn't want to change the developer agreement without seeing very tangible change when it comes to developing. And we won't be able to see that until sidewalks are put in and development proceeds. So I can't support approving this change. I don't think it's the right thing for the city.
I'm really torn on this one. Standard practice isn't having to come before city councils and ask for them not to pull your money to get the job completed because you were unable to do it. I know that you did come in at the end of that and seemingly have done some work that Jack is better with. Standard practice isn't taking more time of the city staff. Standard practice doesn't include city council having to have meetings and send letters out to developers looking to revoke their line of credit to get work done. To be real honest, I'm more than tired of the stuff that has happened in Easton Village. The only thing that's saving, in my opinion, from just saying you didn't do your schedule right, you should have got those guys in quicker, you would have had months of dry weather to get that in, is that there are homeowners that want a house built. That's the only thing saving you right now. And if this happens to come up and it's not right, I won't even blink twice before I pull a line of credit from the developer on this to get it done right. I won't even think twice about it. I'll pull that so quick it'll make your head spin. I've got zero tolerance with this development anymore because I've talked way too much about it. And you can tell Mr. Chase that. So given that I have two council members that live in this development and they're both on both sides, I'm just gonna think about people that wanna live in Lake Elmo. I want people to live in Lake Elmo, and I want them to have a good experience. So that's the only reason I'm looking at this, and then I hope the language fares in there. But if there's subcontractors out there driving across the sidewalk after it gets poured, man, yeah, I'll just be fit to be tied. All right, gonna call the question. All those in favor of motion to approve resolution 2024-123, approving the second amendment to the development agreement for Easton Village 6 and 7 additions, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Thank you, motion passed. Please don't burn that trust. All right, item 21 is approve the lease of temporary cell tower at 3300 Langley Court North with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC.
Okay, so the background is that we have an existing water tower at 3303 Langley Court North. The water tower is planned to be removed in 2025, somewhere in late summer, early fall. AT&T, which is New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, is proposing a temporary tower. It's a 90-foot, I believe, wooden pole. The terms that that are in the agreement are 9 months. It's a one-time payment of $16,848,000. This goes through an administrative review since it is a ground-mounted antenna not exceeding the maximum height for the area, which I believe is 120. We worked with legal on this in the review. From AT&T, from the licensee, it is the macro hub site for Lake Elmo, so it serves residents and businesses in the downtown area. It also has Washington County Emergency Management and their FirstNet system antenna on the tower. This is the site. You can see it's just south of the tracks in the old village. This is a close-up of the type of pole they plan to install in the location. And we're recommending a motion to approve the lease of a temporary cell tower at 3303 Langley Court North with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC. I believe the licensee is here if you have any questions.
Any questions from council? Seems like it's kind of SOP, something we've all become dependent upon. Of course, I'd like to see $1 million price tag on that, but then they just pass that down to the users, so maybe not.
We increased it a little bit, so
Yeah.
we adjusted.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the lease of a temporary cell tower at 3300 Langley Court North with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC.
Is there a second?
Support.
All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve the lease temporary cell tower at 3303 Langley Court North with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, it passes. Now, I did pull something from the consent agenda just because I felt it needed some attention.
Number 11.
Yes. So the agenda item was approved senior city planner promotion. Did you want to speak to this, Director Stopa, since, or Carissa, since you submitted it?
Sure.
You don't need to go in front of the
Okay.
podium.
I mean, I'll start. I mean, our plan was to promote from within and to build people up through their experience. So we have Ashley, who's a planning assistant, was promoted to planner, and Sophia Jensen has reached her 3 years. And our idea is to promote her to senior planner so we can retain people that are doing well in the job. And so we think this is the right time. And currently we're fully staffed, and it's a good way to, the people are here to retain them, so that's what we're looking to do.
Any questions? All right, I'm gonna make a motion to promote Sophia Jensen to senior city planner. Easy for me to say. Can I get a second? Thank you. Discussion. I just want to, I wanted to bring this out because this is a big deal. This, at least for me, a few years ago, Sophia was an intern and she was working out in the Public Works Department. And I stopped by to say hello, and she, as an intern, she put all the city parks in GIS and showed a good attitude for that. And it was innovative thing that was being done to show the residents the parks in the place or people that are visiting, and I really thought that was really cool. And then I know that Councilmember Beckstrom and Holtz were here when Sophia first gave presentations, and I was really impressed with her ability to speak at the lectern in front of us and deliver us information that was factual and objective and well thought out for somebody that had just started. And I think she's really grown in this. I really appreciate all the work that she does. I think that with the staff that's here now and Director Stopa, it's only going to get better. And I just wanted to bring attention to that and give her my accolades and certainly plan on supporting this motion.
I'd like to add that I've had the pleasure of having to, I suppose her grief, talk to her on several issues with regard to planning and conditional use permits and things that I don't want to take up the entire council time because they're my questions. And she's done a very good job. I've been very happy, and Jason's been there as well. One was as recent as today. And so I think she's really grown and developed as well, and that she's an asset to this city.
I want to add that it's not just my opinion. I have gotten some developers that have given me comments about Sophia's attention and ability to get back to them being responsive. So that's a big deal, and you should be proud of that. All right, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to promote Sophia Jensen to senior city planner, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, council reports. Councilmember Dragisich.
No report.
Councilmember Holtz.
The airport commission will have a meeting on Monday, and I believe our very own Ms. Nicole might be presenting to the group.
That is correct. I'm going to do my best. We're going to be featured as a community spotlight. So
I am under the, it'll be a fantastic presentation. I believe Lake Elmo was on WCCO today regarding PFAS. I believe Mr. Griffin made an appearance and possibly Mr. Powers as well. I'm sure it was wonderful out at well number 2. I don't think that it'll be on any additional days this week, but they're all week discussing PFAS. Yesterday was Cottage Grove, tonight was Lake Elmo, and they'll continue. So thank you to Marty and Jack for providing feedback and information for the citizens, because people watch those programs, and it matters to get the information out to people.
All right. Last Thursday, I had the good fortune of representing Lake Elmo at the Veterans Prayer Breakfast that's held annually. I only know it as the Prom Center. It's over in Oakdale by Oak Marsh, but recognizing veterans for their service and their sacrifice and all that they do. It's very well attended. It's a good tribute to our veterans, both that have passed, served, and are serving. Other cities represented were Oakdale, Woodbury, Maplewood, and Stillwater. I think it was just a nice tribute. Secondly, in my professional world, I'll be attending the Minnesota Public Works Association Conference on Thursday and Friday of this week. And because of all our wonderful PFAS issues here in the city. I've been asked to moderate a session in which some people will be speaking regarding PFAS in the community, so look forward to doing that. You can pay for the conference and attend, and certainly. It's not anything you haven't heard before, I'm sure. So, Councilmember Beckstrom?
No report.
Councilmember Hearn?
No report.
Staff reports?
No report.
No report. Ms. Julie?
Just a quick heads up that prior to the next council meeting on December 3rd, we'll be having a special meeting for planning commission interviews.
For what?
Planning commission interviews.
Okay, thank you.
I have no report.
All right, Director Stillwater. Jack?
No report.
Chief?
Nothing from fire.
All right, Nathan?
No report.
No report.
Thank you.
No report. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No report.
All right. Well, that concludes our business for the evening. Meeting is adjourned at 9:05.